Hey guys, this is Easy Acupuncture School where we demystify the mystical and make it practical. Make it practical for your use as a student. Um, so what we're going to talk about today, sorry about the technical difficulty. I'm still trying to become tech savvy. um, what we're going to talk about today is a topic called Who's on What Team. And if you haven't seen my previous video on who has the biggest team, watch that because that'll make it a little less confusing, and then we'll be all in the same playing field. Um, One thing too that I didn't mention last time is that I was trained at a classical acupuncture school, so it's a little different than TCM. It wasn't a five-element school. It's more of a Ling Shu based acupuncture program. So sometimes I might mention things to you guys that seem, if you're TCM based, it might sound a little foreign, but just stick with me because we're all getting to the same place. We're just taking different paths up the mountain. Um, what you'll see with this lecture and what I'm doing with all the lectures is I'm giving you building blocks. It's very basic. It's for students. Um, but these building blocks you stack on top of each other and they make steps up to being able to diagnose. And hopefully you will find that very helpful. Like I said, it's very basic, but they're the building blocks to success. So hang in there with me, and we're going to go over who's got the biggest team and not who's got the biggest team, who's on what team. I apologize. And I also apologize for my hair because I just came in from a hurricane. So I look a little wild and crazy. But anyway, um, let's get started. And hold on for a second. Let me get my little magic screen going here. Um, Oops, sorry. Like I said, technology, I'm just trying to get it figured out. Okay, so hold on, give me just a second or two, and then we're going to get the presentation up and going. And here we go. And you get to see my little face down here in the corner. So it's getting better than it was last time. I'm in my clinic today, and you're not seeing the esoteric Northern Lights background. So anyway, who am I? I'm Stacy Hewitt. I'm a licensed acupuncturist and also a licensed massage therapist. I've been practicing full time for 12 years and teaching for 7. Check out my channel, Easy Acupuncture School. You're already on it if you're watching this video, but check out this video. Oh, that's the link to my channel. But like I said, make sure you watch Who's Got the Biggest Team first. So this will make a little more sense. So who is on what team? That's what we're talking about today. And like I said, who's got the biggest team? It's what we talked about last time. And just to give you a little recap, it's like what we do is we start taking the symptoms that a patient has, and then we start putting them in each their appropriate bucket or the bucket for the appropriate element. So basically, if they have a lot of stuff going on with the liver, we're going to put it around the wood element. If they have a lot of stuff with the kidneys, it's going to go around the water element. If it's respiratory stuff, more than likely it's going to go in the metal, and digestive stuff, more than likely it's going to go in the earth phase. But and then at the end, after you get all the symptoms lined up, after you've made all the categories, inventoried them all in your head, then you look who's got the most on their team, and that's the phase or channel that you're going to look towards the most during for your diagnosis. So more than likely, it's going to be the primary diagnosis is who has the most players on their team. Then, if you're pattern based, start looking at all the patterns that are involved with that channel or that phase and see which one fits you or fits that person the best. So that's just a little summary. What I'm giving you today is just a skeleton. It's going to be a list of different symptoms that you'll see. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's all of them. It's going to be the ones that you primarily see in clinic. When you have a person in front of you, what's going to be the most common things that you see? There's hundreds of symptoms in Chinese medicine, but there's really not just a few, but there's less symptoms that you're going to see on a daily basis than the whole gambit. Yes, there's a possibility that you might see anything in the whole gambit, but there's more of a possibility that there's a group of symptoms that are a more abbreviated set that you'll see. Like I said, it doesn't make it so you rule anything out, but I'm just giving you a list of symptoms to work with that are very common. And one of the things is, like I said, this isn't a definitive list. This is just a skeleton of what's common. If you commonly see something in your clinic that's not on my list, write it down. Start adding to your list if you see things that are common that I don't talk about. Okay? I'm not the end all be all. I'm just here to help. So, what I've done is I've taken the commonly seen symptoms that you'll see in clinic, and I've divided them via channel. Under each channel, I've got first string symptoms and bench warmer symptoms. And I know I'm using some euphemisms from baseball. I'm not really a big baseball fan, but I just seem to be able to use that euphemism and as a divider. So it just makes sense. It makes sense. It's a mind tickler for people or thing for them to remember. So what's a first string symptom? First string symptoms, these would be symptoms that strongly suggest that that channel is involved, the channel that the symptoms are listed under. It's probably, but not always, probably going to be part of your primary diagnosis when you're looking at somebody. It's going to probably be part of what you're going to be treating when you see these symptoms. Those are first string symptoms. And this picture is from a guy, his name was Jimmy Catfish Hunter. He was a professional baseball player. And the only reason I know about him is because he grew up in my hometown. And he was a really nice fellow. But it was like one of the only probably famous people that I know that I've met personally. But anyway, so these are first string symptoms, the things that would be leading you to think that channel is involved with the primary symptoms, the channel that these symptoms fall under. Bench warmers. These are symptoms that belong to a channel, but have a slim possibility that they could be something else. You can't always count them as players towards the team. And as we're going through these lists, I'll talk to you why. But like I said, a lot of times these symptoms are considered to be part of a channel, but they could be something else. So I know that sounds confusing right now, but once you see it in action, you'll understand. Okay, so just stick with me and we'll keep going. The lungs, the lung channel. So here are the first string symptoms for the lung channel. Okay, shortness of breath, problems with exhale. We talked about that in the last video, where it was like the old Primatene Mist asthma commercials, where the person's like, I can't blow out the candle. And then they take a hit off their inhaler and then they're like, so, it's like a hurricane's coming out of their mouth. But that's what you think of. If someone's having a problem more so with their exhale, then this would probably be under the lungs. If it's an inhale, if it's like exercised induced asthma, or I can't breathe in, that might be more of a kidney thing, about where the kidneys, we've heard of the kidneys grasping the chi, pulling it down. That might be more of an issue with that. with inhaling with the lungs. So kind of look towards that. But if it's exhale, it's probably something to do with the lung channel, the lungs, the lung channel. Easily catches a cold. Someone's immune system is low. That's a big one for the lung channel. If they have a cough, heavy cough, wet cough, dry cough, that's going to be the lungs. And here's a big one: sadness and grief. Um, if someone's going through sadness, a thing of sadness, something with sadness, definitely look at the lungs. It is very common for people to have someone pass away or them to be very sad, and they come in your office and they're like, I'm sick, so look at that. Look at that piece. I just had someone that I was working with that it's not the lungs, but is the metal phase, right? Which grief is about. The metal phase is about grief. Who had ulcerative colitis, and one of the big things that was weighing on them is their father's death. And I was like, bam, you know, it ties in. It ties in. Sense of smell, also that's the sensorial aspect of the lung channel or the lung. So, if someone's having a sense of smell issue, we really, I guess, have seen that more with COVID nowadays. But sense of smell, look at a potential of something going on with the lungs. All right, lung bench warmers. Here we go. Now you'll get a better understanding of what I mean by bench warmer. Skin problems. We all think of, skin is involved with the lungs, or the lungs control the skin, right? That's one of the tissues of that that metal phase, the lungs is the skin. Now, a couple of things to watch out for, you know, um, skin problems such as eczema. Um, yeah, well, that's one of the things to think about with the lung channel. But some things like rashes also could be uh, an issue with blood deficiency, because awesome you a lot of times, not awesome, a lot of the times you will see where different skin issues are related to the skin not getting appropriate amounts of blood, or the person being blood deficient and the blood not coming up and helping to lubricate and moisten the skin, so the skin dries out and gets rashes. So think about that. Whenever you see skin issues, don't automatically think it's the lungs. It could be a blood deficient issue. Also, if it's environmental, I mean, if somebody spills acid on their arm, they're gonna get a spot. Something's gonna show up. So environmental exposure to things can cause rashes to pop up, right? So keep those in mind, because I don't want you to sit there and go, just hammering at this lung channel and nothing's changing with the skin, and it's something going on with their environment that's causing it. Also, acne, it's a problem with the face, or not just the face, but it could be all over the body. But it's a problem with the skin, yes, but it could be hormonal. It could be some kind of dampness. So look or investigate to make sure that's not going on. The other thing is sweating. We always hear about how the lungs control the pores, the opening and closing of the pores. And that way it releases sweat. If the pores are open too much, then the person profusely sweats. And now that's a great concept, but always watch out for this. I'm going to give you an example about the lungs in a second. But a lot of times, if somebody profusely is sweating, it could be something where they're nervous. Like if somebody comes in and they say, I've got a problem with hyperhidrosis, meaning like excess sweating. Well, it could be that um, If you're just sitting around watching TV, are you sweating a lot? Or is it when you're in there talking to your boss about a raise, that's when you sweat a lot? Then that's not, you don't see that in the Chinese medicine book, but that's a good way to try to differentiate. Is it nerves or is it the lungs? Um, I'll give you an example of the lungs. In a previous life, before I was an acupuncturist, I had a job and where I worked in the IT industry. And we had a gentleman come in one day, and he was giving us a presentation about something or another. I don't even know what. But he came in and he had just gotten out of the hospital. And he came in, and this is before I was doing Chinese medicine or knew anything about anything of this. But he was hobbling around and he introduced himself and he's like, "Oh, I just got out of the hospital." And he went through his presentation and he was sweating like it was 150 degrees in the office or where he was doing his presentation. And he wasn't nervous. It was because he was really weak and still sick. And you could tell it by the way when he came in, you could tell that he was sick. And I'm not talking about flu sick. I'm talking about weak from being in the hospital. I don't know what his problem was. I don't know what was going on, but he was sick, not with the flu, because the flu can cause you to sweat too, of course. But I'm talking about he was weak. I mean, he was as white as a sheet, and he was an African American fellow. So it was very evident that he was white and weak and sick. And that's the type of sweating that they're talking about when you're really chi deficient, when you're really weak and worn out and your body just sweats, not because you're sick with a fever, it's just because you're too weak to hold in the water. Well, also dampness sometimes can cause people to sweat as well. And then also make sure when they're talking about, oh, I sweat a bunch, it's not night sweats. It's not kidney yin deficiency. It's not like, oh, is it only like in the evening or later part of the day when you're sweating? Then that could be more of a kidney yin issue. So the large intestine, bench warmers, and you're like, well, Stacy, what about first string? Well, you'll realize that a lot, not always, but a lot of the young organs, they have symptoms in that could be not just with their system. They could be other things. So that's why I'm saying this is a bench warmer. It doesn't mean that it's not the large intestine, but it doesn't mean that it is. And these are symptoms that are commonly listed under the large intestine, but let's talk about them. So discomfort in the lower abdomen, that's something that you see in books all the time. But that could be anything. That could be depressive heat from the liver. It could be they ate some food that's bad. Somebody could have hit them in the stomach. Houdini used to have this trick where he would let anyone punch him in the stomach, and he could resist tremendous blows. But then one day, and this is how he died actually, one day he challenged a really strong man to do that, and the guy hit him, and he wasn't prepared for it, and I think it burst his appendix and it killed him. But anyway, so there could be a lot of things. Just don't diagnose it being large intestine if their abdomen is uncomfortable. I mean, it could be a lot of things. Dry stool. Yes, that is very common where you hear that the large intestine is dry, so the stools are dry. But it could be not something going on with the large intestine. It could be depressive heat again. That liver heat is starting to cook that large intestine, so the stools get dry. So don't automatically think it's the large intestine. Blood and mucus in the stool. Well, it could be the same thing. It could be not that it's just the large intestine by itself that's sick and that's what's causing this. It could be the liver is attacking it. So just explore these other avenues before you are committed to saying this is definitely a large intestine symptom. Prolapse or itchy anus. Look at that's commonly has some kind of dampness involved with it, and heat. Look to find where the dampness and the heat's coming from. Not saying that it's not just the large intestine and the large intestine only, but look and make sure there's not any dampness coming from somewhere else, or there's not some heat coming from somewhere else that's causing this. And then the last thing is emotionally holding on to something. That's more of a kind of like a more modern kind of approach, a 5E approach. Sometimes, you'll hear that with 5 elements. But it's all about the large intestine, being in the modern term is like being anally retentive. It's interesting. It's like, but it's holding things on. It holds our feces for us. It's a gathering place for our waste. So it holds on to things. So you can metaphorically kind of look at it as like, sometimes we hold on to things, not just physical waste, but mental waste, or things that we should be able to get rid of, but we can't. And sometimes that could be part of the large intestine. But like I said, these are bench warmers. When you're starting to create your teams, put your teams together, starting to count how many symptoms are under each channel. These bench warmers are not, they might count as like half a player, right? Not a whole player. So, and we're going to talk about diagnosis a little bit at the very end of this. But as long as you get an idea of what's going on with, these could be other things, not just the channel that they're listed under. So they're like half players, like I said. Stomach, once again, it's the bench warmer. It has a lot of symptoms that can be with other systems. So let's look at that real quick. So discomfort in the epigastrium. We just talked about that. They could have been punched in the stomach. They could have eaten something bad. Depressive heat from the liver. It could be any of those things that are affecting the stomach. So look out for that. Vomiting could be depressive heat. It could be that liver once again attacking the stomach and giving it rebellious chi. So check that out. Nausea, same thing. It could be something, so well, not something like anything, but look at the liver to see if that's not attacking it. Big appetite. Now, big appetite, I was vacillating back and forth about making this first string because, you see this in a lot of books, and a lot of times if somebody has a big voracious appetite and they're not a teenager, but they feel like they're hungry all the time, that could mean a lot of times it could be excessive stomach fire. So definitely check that out. But look and see, is there another player that's heating the stomach up? Guess who? The liver maybe, that's causing um, the stomach to feel like it might be overheated. But a lot of times that big appetite is something with there's a fire going on in the stomach that's being caused by the stomach. Maybe I should move my picture up to the top. I'll do that with the next section of videos. There we go. So a lot of symptoms that the spleen exhibits, like fatigue and heavy limbs, weak limbs, and tiredness. You'll see that listed under the stomach, but really check out the spleen first. And because a lot of these symptoms that I'm talking about, and we'll go into this more when we're talking about the spleen, um, this fatigue or heavy limbs or tiredness, if your digestive system, if the earth phase is offline, the spleen's offline, so and the stomach's offline, a lot of times when you can't extract the energy you need from your food, you don't feel vital. You do feel fatigued, or you do feel like your limbs are very heavy and you can't move them. Um, so just check out, if you see these, don't automatically think of the stomach. Look at the spleen first. Okay. So let's go on to the next next exciting slide, the spleen. the first string, the Jimmy Catfish Hunter symptoms. All right, let's look at those because there's a lot. And the spleen's a very important channel to look at. Very important. You'll see that a lot of times with people. So some of the things to look at: poor appetite, tiredness, especially after meals. That's a biggie. I've got these in red, and these are some of the things that are very important for the spleen. Like, it's not just, oh, I'm just eating a big Thanksgiving dinner and I got to go to sleep. It's like a lot of times if I eat, any type of meal and I feel like a little fatigue, like I've got to go to sleep, that says something about the spleen. Loose stools, the spleen's all about loose stools. You know, if, um, so if you see that, think first about the spleen. Long, thin, ribbony stools. Now, you, as an acupuncturist, will talk to people about their poop a whole lot more than you ever thought. I mean, it's a very important thing, not only to figure out what systems offline, but then you're going to be asking a lot about like what the quality of the poop is, how many times, and then what's it like? Meaning like is it a brown banana versus a long ribbony stool? Um, so you'll be asking people about that all the time, and you think now it's like, oh, I can't ask anybody about their poop. It is old. It'll become old hat to you. I mean, you'll just sit down and what you say is like, "Do you have a well-formed daily bowel movement?" And you start the conversation, not any conversation off with that, because people will, if you're out in the social world and you started the conversation with that, people think, "What is this guy's problem?" But when you're talking with patients, you say, "Do you have a daily well-formed bowel movement?" And you want to say daily because, well, I'll tell you why in a second, and then well formed. Because if you say, "Hey, are your bowel movements okay?" Then they'll go, "Sure, yeah," and you'll find out that person has it only goes once every 5 days, and they have little balls, and you need to know if, and we'll go on to that, go on about what the different types of bowel movements are, probably in a different lecture. But um, there if they have what we want is a brown banana, yay long, banana shaped, brown. So if they have something other than that, that tells us there's something going on. Undigested food, once again, that means their body's not able to process. Occasionally, that could be stomach fire. Um, but first look at the spleen for that, and then any blood deficiency signs. One of the things that you commonly hear, especially in Chinese hospital medicine, is blood deficiency. Spleen chi deficiency is just an inferred thing. They don't even write spleen chi deficiency down. It's just inferred with blood deficiency when they're making a diagnosis. So any any blood deficiency issues, there's going to be something going on with the spleen. Okay, guys, it was great seeing you. I'm gonna make some more videos eventually that will be coming out probably next week um, to finish this up. And I'm hoping, probably not with this lecture, but with the next ones, I'm still trying to figure stuff out. So what I'm going to do is going to be really odd, I know. Is I can't figure out how to distribute a, notes to you. So at the end of all this, I'm going to show slides that are going to have everything that you need, and you can just kind of, I guess, do a screenshot or something like that until I figure out how to distribute the notes a little better. But anyway, guys, hey, thanks for joining me today. And we're going to get through the rest of this. And then, like at the end, like I said, we're going to start to talk about how we diagnose with all of this stuff. All right, great. Hey, thanks. And see you soon. Okay.